Welcome to Conversations from St. Norbert College, a program that encourages good discussion in our community on today's local and global issues. Now, your host for Conversations from St. Norbert College, author, professor, and nationally known sports economist, Dr. Kevin Quinn.
Welcome to Conversations from St. Norbert College. I'm Kevin Quinn. Our special guest is Pablo Lucio Paredes, and we'll discuss a number of issues surrounding economics. Pablo is one of Ecuador's leading economists. He has been a business entrepreneur, journalist, TV personality, national planning minister of Ecuador, and a writer of books on economics as well as on his personal passion, football or soccer. He is currently professor of economics at the Universidad de San Francisco de Quito, where he is also director of the Institute of Economics. Pablo, welcome to St. Norbert College.
A pleasure to be here. Are you sure I have done all those things?
I'll tell you, when I was reading about all the stuff you've done, I felt pretty inadequate.
No.
Well, let's start at the beginning here, which is you were born in Madrid. And then you wound up getting your master's degree from the University of Paris in nuclear physics, not economics. So how did that happen?
Well, to begin with, my father was a diplomat, so we traveled around the world with him. I was born in Spain. Then we came when I was 5, maybe 6 months or 7 months to the U.S. in Washington, D.C. Then we went back to Ecuador. Then we went to Belgium. Then we went back to Ecuador. Then I went to study in France. I was 9 years down there. Mm-hmm. Then I came back to Ecuador, and then I have made my professional life in Ecuador as an Ecuadorian, naturally. But in fact, yes, I studied first physics because when I was just finishing high school, I didn't know what to study, what to do in my life. And I got sick and I was in bed for 2 months. And some people brought me books and I read 1 or 2 books about physics. And I thought, well, this seemed to be an interesting thing. So I began to study and I made 6 years of that. And then I found at the end of the 6 years when I was beginning my PhD, that mathematics was too difficult for me, my level of mathematics. So I found that I will be a very bad physicist. So I prefer to be a medium economist than a bad physicist.
I've heard it said that all economists are B- mathematicians. But then you, of course...
I am a little bit more because having made physics, my level of maths is bad for physics, but it's good for economics.
Well, then you went into economics, and what necessarily attracted you? I mean, you're in Paris. It's probably about 1980 or something like that.
Exactly.
And was there an event that really drew you?
No. As I decided that I wouldn't go for physics, I will not continue. And 3 years before that, I had begun studying economics. So sometime as I was doing physics and economics, I went in the morning to the physics university that was very left-wing oriented, no? So I had to go in blue jeans and with my hair like that, no? And then in the afternoon I went to the School of Economics that was very right-oriented, okay? And I have to go with a tie and all that. So I have to change my personality from the morning to the afternoon. and then when I left the physics, I decided to continue and to finish economics. And then I went back to Ecuador in 1985. And I began working, and I decided that the main thing I wanted in life is to have some sort of freedom, not to be linked to anyone especially, and to be flexible in my life so I can do some things. No, I'm not done to make only one thing in life. I prefer to do some things. And then I began as let's say, a journalist. I began writing daily in a newspaper that they decided at that time to begin giving economic analysis, and information. And so they told me to take all this page of the newspaper, daily. So I was young. I was just coming in Ecuador. I had no job. So I said, well, okay, I will try it. And I began with that. So that was my first link to information and journalism and all that.
Wow. So you grew up basically throughout Europe, the son of a diplomat. And I mean, being in Paris in the late 70s and early 1980s had to be pretty cool.
Well, it's always cool to be in Paris, as you can imagine. But I will say that this came, I went there in 75 and 75. And it was not the Paris, I suppose, some people had known of the 68 movement and struggle and all these things, The young people have cooled down. They were thinking more on jobs than in revolution. So it was really, in some way, I imagine, different from some years before.
Well, there was, terrorism was a reality of everyday life there. I think a lot of Americans think that terrorism was invented maybe in the early 2000s, but Europe has been dealing with this for a long time in their cities.
Well, I think countries are always interesting all the time. So Europe and France were very interesting. And Ecuador, when I came back, was interesting. So that time I began making this journal thing. Then being there, we decided in 19 and something to put out the first magazine on economics, no? It was a magazine of 90, 100 pages that we made a month. We made it with 3 friends. We put it each one $10,000, and we began. And the people were telling us, no, it's impossible to make a national magazine with $30,000 to begin it. No, you need much more to do that. But we began, and we have it for 6 or 7 years. It was very successful, and we sold it out in the 2000 when we had a big economic crisis in Ecuador. We decided to sell it. So we went there. I went there now in these things of information and communication, and then probably in 95, 96, I began a TV program. It was a very special program because it was only 3 minutes, no. So, but it was a program. It was inside the news in the morning, but they stopped the news and they had an ad of my program, and I had my 3 minutes, and then they closed the program. So it was really a small program, but a program inside the news in the morning. And I had that for this 3 minutes show for 12 years. For 12 years. I thought at the beginning that it would last maybe 6 months or a year. First I thought I don't have subjects for daily thing, no? But then I have for 12 years.
For 12 years.
So I found subjects for 12 years. And then I thought, how will people find my 2 or 3 minute program? It's so short. You know, the people are always changing channels, no? So I thought people will never find me, no? But in fact, they found me, and it has some success. That's why I had it for 12 years, I suppose.
Well, here in the U.S. we have CNBC and Fox Business News, and they're 24-hour business programming.
Yes, sure.
But if you are not a business person, you're not an economist, and you sit and listen to it, they talk about all kinds of strange things. It would be like listening literally in a different language. I think there's real demand for someone that can sort of bring things down to give an opportunity for people to understand big picture stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
In
normal language.
In normal language.
Exactly.
We economists are not exactly known for that.
But I will say that I do many things, but this I think I do it well. It's to communicate with people in normal language. And well, I had it for 12 years, and the people like the program, even people that you will not imagine. I mean, the guy that's selling things in the street. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I have found them and say, "Hey, how are you? I saw your program." I mean, I was surprised. And probably the best, I don't know if we'll have time, but the best anecdote around this, and that really goes into my heart, it's that one time I was going out of town in the car, and then a lady that was selling popcorn in the street, poor people, no? I asked him, give me one bag of popcorns, and she gave me 2. I said, no, I'm sorry, I want only, this is big, I want only 1. And she said, no, take the 2, because the one you are buying, and the other one is from a poor person to you, because I was always looking at your program, the TV.
Wow.
And I was really disappointed of the country, and I wanted to go to Spain, like many Ecuadorians did in the end of the 90s. But listening at your program, I thought that we can do things in our country, and I decided to stay because of your program. And I'm happy of doing that, because now my life is going well. I mean, I'm poor, but I'm going well. So this is a gift from our poor people to you, no?
Oh, so
that was great into your heart.
That's wonderful, because I would imagine being a TV personality, it means you can't leave your house without people knowing who you are. So you have to make sure that your hair is combed and all that sort of thing.
People are nice. People are nice, really. And at that moment I thought, well, I'm doing this program daily. I'm writing once a week in the newspaper, and sometimes, as you know, we say, well, I will talk today about anything, or I write about anything. Then this day I thought, well, there are people that are listening. no, and maybe giving importance to what I'm saying. So from there on, every day when I was like that, saying, well, I talk about anything, I said, no. You have to think and you have to do it well. Even if you don't find the subject, you have to find the subject and do it well, because there's people listening, no?
That's an awesome responsibility. Well, talk a little bit about Ecuador. I think probably most of the people watching right now, know it's in South America, but I'm guessing they don't know a whole lot about the country. Can you tell us a little about the history and the people?
Well, Ecuador is the second smallest country in South America. The smallest one is Uruguay. It's a country of 14 million people. No? It's, I would say, if you take a list of the 170 countries in the world, Ecuador is probably around the half on average. I would mean in poverty or wealth, the side you want. It's probably around an average. We have problems like any country. But I think that when people go there, they say, well, Ecuador is better than we thought, no? What's an average country in the world? It's better than what you think. We have a lot of oil, at least for us. We are a small producer in the world, but for us it's very important. And then Ecuador is or has been a very good producer of basic products. For example, Ecuador is the #1 in the world for bananas, and I think most of the people have eaten bananas in their life.
Yes.
We are, if not the one, maybe the second or third in shrimps, in flowers. We have been in the time a big producer of cacao, yes, of coffee. So in basic products, Ecuador is a very good country. So a lot of people live on banana, on coffee, on cocoa. And the main, I would say, challenge of Ecuador is how to upgrade production, to go from these basic products to more valuable products. Now, for example, instead of doing cocoa, to do chocolate and to sell chocolate instead of cocoa. What we have been doing for 100 years is selling cocoa to Belgians or to Swiss, and they sell us the chocolate made with our cocoa. So that's not a good idea. So now there are people beginning to do that. I'm sure that in some markets and stores down here, you find Ecuadorian chocolate, and it's very good. So that's the great challenge of the country, upgrading production. And it's the same challenge we have in soccer. That was a parenthesis.
Well, right now that requires, of course, capital investment, and the developing world has been enjoying more than its share of capital investment. China, India, etc. How has Ecuador fared in attracting that? I mean, they have a large workforce, right?
Yes, but Ecuador has never been an attractor of foreign investment. Besides oil, naturally, because we have investment in that. But besides that, we are not a great attractor of investment. Now there are people coming in for mining. Well, mining is like oil. There are Chinese going in, Canadians going in for mining. We have found gold, we have found copper and other things. So now Ecuador, besides oil, will maybe get a lot of wealth through mining.
Well, Ecuador has been an independent country for a long time, right?
Since 1830.
That's a long time.
Because there was between, let's say, 1810 and 1830, the countries down there in the north part of South America, they were trying to match together to get the independence from Spain and to make one country. And they were trying to do that since 20 years from 1810 to 30. At the end, they decided that it was impossible to be together, and they split in 6 countries. And that's Panama, it's Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. So, in fact, the idea in those times was to have only one country. We finished with 6.
The Galapagos are part of Ecuador. Have you ever had an opportunity to go there?
I sure have been there, yes. The Galapagos is an incredible place. For the people that maybe don't remember, 150 years ago, Charles Darwin, when he made his famous tour around the world to try to understand how life has evolved and how animals were changing and all that, he went to the Galapagos, and for him it was maybe the first or the second most important visit he did around the world to try to understand how animals and nature works. No? And from there, he wrote his famous book around the species, the evolution of species. And well, and Galapagos is that. No, Galapagos is a marvelous place where you can find all the ancient, let's say, animals. That are still there. And I really had a great time these days here in Green Bay and the pier and around. And I went to some pre-K schools and things like that. And I was talking about Galapagos with the kids, and I was telling them that really animals are very friendly in Galapagos. No, you can get into the water, and you will be in the water with a dolphin and with a sea lion and with a penguin, and they don't care about you. They're just around. They are friendly. And the kids said, "Really? And even sharks are friendly?" And I said, "Yes, even sharks are friendly down there."
Well, the largest animals we have around here are probably deer. And they're not real friendly because we shoot at them. Hunting is a very important part of the culture here.
Exactly. Well, we have other sort of animals in Ecuador we are not going to talk about.
So what are the major economic issues facing your country right now? I mean, the whole world right now is kind of a mess economically. How does that visit itself on a country like Ecuador?
Well, when you say all the world is a mess, in fact, that's an American point of view. Because really the problems are in the US and in Europe. No? This is surprising. This is the first time probably in 50 years that the developed countries have problems, important problems. Normally the problems and the crisis came from the developing countries. No? So really the developing countries are not having the same problems you have. We have indirectly some effects, naturally, but not directly. No? And China is growing, India is growing, Brazil is growing, Chile is walking, and while other countries. In Ecuador, really the big impact for Ecuador is through oil prices. No? We had the last crisis we had in Ecuador was in 1998, 99. That went to the dollarization of the Ecuadorian economy. Now our currency since 2000 is the US dollar. Okay. I don't know if we have chosen well, but, but we have chosen.
I don't know if there's a lot of other options out there, actually.
That's the question, exactly. And, but the trigger of that crisis was that the oil price in 98, 13 years ago, it's not 100 years ago, was around $7 per barrel.
Wow.
$7. So for Ecuador, it was terrible. We had this crisis and all that. But then we had, since 2004, we had the prices climbing. This year, we have an average of more than 90. You can think 13 years ago, we had 7. Now we have 90. And the cost of producing oil in Ecuador is maybe around $20 or $25 per barrel. So we get into our pockets the full difference of around $60 or $70 per barrel. So that's a lot of money coming in. So for us, the main impact is through oil prices. And as during this crisis, oil prices have not gone down, not too much. I mean, you can see even in your gas station, there are not big changes. So that's not a big impact for Ecuador. No? The other important impact for Ecuador, but is smaller, is the remittances of Ecuadorians that live abroad, mainly the US and in Spain, and now they are having problem of employment in the US and Spain. So those Ecuadorians are sending back to Ecuador to their families less money than what they sent before. Okay, but really oil for us is the big link to the world economy.
So when oil's up, things are good. When oil's down, not so good.
Exactly. So it's easy to do business in Ecuador in some way. You know, if you look at oil price and you decide.
You know which way the wind is blowing, then.
Exactly.
You're watching Conversations from St. Norbert College. Joining us is Ecuador's leading economist, Pablo Lucio Paredes. And as the country's leading economist, or certainly one of them, if not the leading economist, you've had an opportunity to have various roles with government and really participate in a country's decision-making process, which is unimaginable, I think, for most Americans. What's that like, knowing that the decisions that you make and the conversations that you have are going to affect literally millions of people?
Well, it's very difficult, in fact, because at least me, I'm very emotional, and this sort of things go into my heart and my soul, and I say, wow, this is a huge responsibility. Am I able to handle this? Maybe other people and other politicians, they handle this very easily, but for me it's very difficult. I'm only thinking, am I doing my best? I'm really capable of doing this? And I have at least been in two things in government or in public issues. One was in 92, 93, I was the Minister of Planning of the government. And I think the people recognize we have done a good job when we were there. And the second time was in 2008, just three years ago. I went for a special thing. This was a constituent assembly where we were rewriting or writing a new constitution for Ecuador. Okay, so that's a special thing. I mean, not everyone in the world has been writing constitutions. No.
Really?
Well, that sounds a big deal, but in fact, this was the 22nd constitution we have written in Ecuador. We are writing one every 8 or 10 years. So it's less than a big deal when you think that. But anyway, it was a 8 months job. I was elected by the people of Quito. No, there were 14 representatives of the city, and I was one of them. And we had 8 months of being in a small town, 1 hour flight from Quito. We were there for 8 months, and we wrote down the constitution. I was in the minority. This was organized by the government. The government had the majority. As I don't like too much the government, I was in the minority. And while we were there, we tried to do our best. And then there was a vote of the people for or against the constitution. I was doing a political campaign against this constitution I didn't like. But at the end, the government and the constitution won. So we have now this constitution. No? And who knows, probably in 10 years, we will have a new constitution. I don't know. That's a bad thing.
You know, it's unimaginable, I think, in this country that, we hold the Constitution in such reverence that the idea that we would ever change it. In fact, as most Americans know, we didn't have the Constitution here when we got started. We had a loose Articles of Confederation of the various states. And the folks who got together to put together the Constitution actually were probably practicing treason of some sort. I doubt it if you've done it 20 times that anybody would accuse you of treason.
Well, but I think and you have this thing with a constitution, but we have the same with the U.S. Constitution. In fact, from Ecuador, we see the U.S. Constitution as a fantastic thing, that you have kept that for 200 years and more, that you have done some amendments, but at the end, you had something like 10 articles at the beginning, and then you have amended 20 and sometimes. And for us, that's a great thing, because we are doing this process, but we don't like that. I mean, we are really thinking about ourselves, saying, well, what's this all around? Why are we doing 22 constitutions? And one of the reasons is that we do very specific constitutions. No, yours is 10 articles plus 20 and something amendments. Mm-hmm. The last one we made in 2008 was 444 articles.
Wow. Okay. Sounds like the outcome of a faculty meeting.
So you can imagine that in 400 and more articles, you are very specific of things. And so that's not a constitution. No, a constitution should be around great principles and things, so you can move around. No, but when you have more than 400, it's very specific. So when a new government comes in, he says, "Oh no, with these specific things, I cannot work. So I want to make my constitution." No.
That's funny. I mean, just different cultures sort of look at that differently. Well, I would be remiss, speaking of culture, if I did not ask you about sports and football.
Please.
Your
Yeah,
passion.
sure.
Here in Green Bay, Wisconsin, of course, football is a bit of a religion. And
I went to the Packers game.
Yeah, what was that like?
The other side, great. Yeah. I went with my son. He's 6. He's our fourth children, and we went with him, and it was great. I mean, when I came here, I had. My friend Bob Boyer, he was the great organizer of my visit here. He has done so well, but it's a way of joke. But I was telling him I will go to Green Bay with one condition, is to have tickets for a Packers game. So I really wanted to go to a Packers game.
And he produced. That's pretty impressive, because Packers tickets are
sure,
slightly more difficult to get than an audience with the Pope.
I know. This week here, when I told this, people were saying, "You went to the Packers game?" They were jealous. Well, I wanted them to be jealous.
So how did that compare to going to a soccer game in Ecuador?
Well, the difference is that you have only 8-10 games a year in football. So it's not the same that when you have 30 or 35 games a year like we have in Ecuador, no? So probably it compares to international competitions. No, because in soccer, I'm a fan of the team that has been the best in the last 10 years, but it's not because of that. I was a fan 30 years ago when it was not good. But when a normal game, we have 7,000-8,000 people in the place. In the bad games, we have 2,000 or 3,000. I'm among the 2,000 or 3,000.
That's a serious fan.
And in the international games, and our team Liga has been very successful these last years, we can have the 40,000, the full stadium. No? So we have all those things. So I can compare this to an international game. No, it's great. People are having fun and people are shouting and all that. So I like it very much. And well, there's a big difference. No, my kid was saying that. Well, I like football, but I prefer soccer because soccer they are always moving. In football, they are always stopping.
It's very cerebral, and then they try to kill each other, and then it's very cerebral again. Yeah. Is the way that works.
The game that is it's in between soccer and football in some way is European rugby. Mm-hmm. No. Well, not only European, they play in New Zealand. They're just playing now the World Championship in New Zealand. And as I was in France, they are big fans of rugby, especially in the small towns in the south of France. So rugby is very popular, and it's a very nice game. It's a moving game like soccer. It's all the time moving, and at the same time they are playing with hands and they are shaking around like in football. No? So
it's very popular among college age students and young people here. There are a lot of clubs. There isn't a lot of inter-university play, and that's sort of formally sanctioned the way that college football or college basketball is, but it's definitely gaining in popularity.
Well, I've been surprised these days talking with these kids from pre-K on that a lot of kids are playing soccer now. No, I told them.
Oh yes.
What do you do? They say soccer. Well, football, and baseball. But most of them, a lot of them, they were playing soccer. Now, for us, there's an interesting difference between the way you do sport, you organize sports in here or in Europe, in South America. We have the European model, let's say. No, and it's funny because in general, the people here in the U.S. they say about Europe and South America that we are much more regulated, that we are less free market, no, and that the U.S. is more free market, less regulated, etc., etc. But in sports, it's exactly the other way, no. Here you have very regulated sports. You have the famous draft where you put the good players into the bad teams. That doesn't exist down there. The team that has money, they buy. They buy the players they want, and if they want to buy the 10 best players, they will do it. So we don't have this idea of the draft. Then here you share TV revenues. No, we don't share. The big teams that have more audience, more public, more supporters, they get more money, much more money for the TV things, broadcasting, and that's it. Then here, the team that is bad, it's going down to another category, no? Another division. Here, you stay there. You can be all the time. You can, like some teams that I will not mention, you can have more than 100 years not winning.
I can't think of any of that.
No, me either.
As a Cub fan, I'm just drawing a blank on which that would be. Well, I have heard the NFL described as 32 fat cat capitalists acting like socialists.
Good to finish. I'll write it down.
It seems to work. It seems to work for them.
But the reason why it works, and I think in that sense, probably the U.S. is better than the other ones, is that the difference between economics in sports and on other things is that in other things you can make your competitors disappear. You know? If you have a shirt business, if the other disappear, you are happy. You will sell more shirts, but not in sports because you need to be against someone.
Right,
no?
right.
And so you cannot make the others disappear. You need the others. And you don't need one of the others. You need some. So you have an interesting competition. So I think that's the reason why you have made this way, is that you understood better than us that you need competition. You need many teams winning and going around. So you have leveled the field in some way so you can have. Once when I wrote a book about soccer and I was talking about the other sports, I made a small calculation, and if I remember well, in American sports, there were around 20 or 24 teams that have gone in the last 20 years or 30 years that have gone to the semifinals or near the finals, things like that. In European sports, only 8 or 10. So really concentration is much bigger in European and South American teams than here. And probably you are right of having this leveling the field.
You know, American sports economists and European sports economists spend an awful lot of time thinking about competitive balance. And we seem to worship at the altar of almost an idealized world in which everybody gets a shot. But I'm not sure that that's exactly what fans want. I think fans like to have big teams, and they like to have the smaller teams knock them off once in a while. I think it's a very complicated, thing. But the good news is that it keeps sports economists like me busy, and we can keep publishing papers. Unfortunately, we're out of time. This has been a wonderful conversation. I hope you've enjoyed our show. Until next time, I'm Kevin Quinn. Best wishes for good conversations from St. Norbert College.